Oh, look at this. The sunlight's out actually a little bit, so a good time to try to get some flight in before nature changes its mind. Actually, yesterday I accidentally got kind of a cool shot. I was wondering if I could kind of replicate it in some ways. I was basically flying up, but the wind was actually blowing the drone, so it was turning while it was going up, so I thought it was a cool spiral effect. Lots of wacky news too, and something about DJI's site being compromised because of the SSL. At this point, it seems to be like a constant theme in terms of security issues after all that military stuff, like not wanting to use the DJI products. Makes me wonder if they're focusing way too much on just the hardware as opposed to the software as well. But the first crazy thing I read today, related to cars, people often talk about things like distracted drivers or even things like drones. They're worried about the drones hitting the car. How about this one? Apparently these cops busted this guy for, I guess, distracted driving. As you can see here, he had a tablet and a cell phone on the steering wheel. And I guess the police department, they tweeted this as, can't make it up. Guy had iPad and cell phone attached by strings on steering wheel while driving. Yes, that's his ticket he's holding. I'm just wondering, how would you react if you were the police officer and you saw this? Would you give him like the maximum fine there is, or would you just look at it like, what are you doing? Is this real? I was even joking where I thought this guy's probably playing Pokemon Go or something. That's actually what people do. They play on multiple devices like that, driving around places to place. And I think recently here there was actually a person given a ticket for playing that game actually because of distracted driving. Like I said before, of all the things that we allow in life and the dangerous people there are using them, how do we live with it? So people should think about that when they start saying ban everything, like in terms of other things they don't really get. And apparently today a lot of people are talking about YouTube kid video channels, and apparently they're very exploitive, so apparently some of them have been banned. These channels I've never even heard of before. I just tried to see some clips to see what all the fuss is about, and yeah, I guess you can say it is exploitive. Just makes me think for these parents that do this to their kids. What are you thinking when you do that? Doesn't it cross your mind that potentially it could scar them for the rest of their life, or is it just for the sake of entertainment? The things people do. So the security thing about the DJI says here, drone maker DJI left its private SSL firmware keys open to the world plus dog on GitHub for years. Plus AWS creds public-facing S3 buckets packed with info. Let me see, how do I dumb this down, I guess. Essentially, imagine it, I guess it's like normally when you send data, it's all encrypted, so you need a key, and they basically left it basically wide open for people to get. Think of it as, I don't know, a key to the house or something like that. And it's been going on for years apparently. So it says here, by leaking the wildcard cert key, which covers DJI.com, DJI gave miscreants the information needed to create spoof instances of manufacturer's website with the correct HTTPS certificate, and silently redirect victims to malicious forgeries and downloads through standard man-in-middle attacks. Hackers could also use the key to decrypt and tamper with intercepted network traffic to and from its web servers. It's rather embarrassing. DJI is one of the world's largest small and medium-sized aerial drone manufacturers. Wow, that's really crazy. I'm personally not surprised, sadly to say, just based on all the news and stuff I've heard. I mean, overall, again, it seems like they make one of the best hardware in terms of drones and stuff, making it affordable. But in terms of things like software and support, it seems like they're way over their heads at this moment. It seems like they really need to reinvest into that part of their business, huh? Now, I know there are some people that say for drones and the information you send, they're like, who cares? Like, what are you going to get out of my flight logs and so forth? But I think it's the bigger picture in terms of the information people can get out of this when a company has that much data on people. Although even I was a little surprised to read this. It says, I had seen unencrypted flight logs, passports, driver licenses, and identification cards. The guy also said, it should be noted that newer logs and PII, personally identifiable information, seem to be encrypted with a static open SSL password. So theoretically, some of the data was at least loosely protected from prying eyes. So not complete disaster, but that just shows you how much information a company could have when it comes to stuff like that, I suppose. It made a point to how they feel this is potentially why the US Army said no more DJI products as well. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. Now, I read in the US there were people that didn't want police officers to use drones just for the fear of things like privacy or people abusing the technology, I suppose, using it for other reasons. And it says here, right here in Canada anyways, critics raise privacy concerns as Ontario eyes use of highway patrol drones. Imagine an unmanned aircraft flying along the highway using powerful cameras to keep an eye on drivers and making sure they're following the rules. That possible future is one step closer with an agreement recently announced between the Ontario government and a Toronto area technology company. You guys imagine that? A drone flying like in the highway back and forth, making sure people aren't speeding, or maybe even things like distracted driving, which would be a little ironic since I know a lot of people say you shouldn't fly the drone near the highways or whatever because it'll distract the drivers. I don't see how this would solve that. And according to this anyways, it says the technology will be good enough to read the windshield sticker some solo drivers use to buy their way into carpool lanes. The drones would fly themselves, he explained, although a person would monitor them from a distance and be ready to take control if necessary. The feasibility is there in terms of the technology. We're almost there. I don't know, does that sound scary for people? One thing that was confusing to me though, in this article, to justify that tech, it says it's cheaper to have a drone, in a sense, to fly back and forth or stay there 24 hours a day than to set up a bunch of cameras. I'm just thinking there, even logically, isn't it cheaper actually just to have some kind of high-end, high-res camera that's there to capture and monitor everything so you don't have to worry about this thing flying back and forth? Or is it more of actually zooming in, for example, or flying next to the guy saying, "You're busted"? He even says here, in order to have static cameras, you need to have lots of them, he said in an interview from Miami. When you have a flying platform, it reduces the cost dramatically. Again, I'm just trying to think, if you had actually a sophisticated camera system, or let's just say a 360 one, really high res and all that, isn't that actually cheaper to have that stationary somewhere and someone can just, I don't know, turn the camera, zoom in a powerful zoom lens? Is that better than to have a drone there? And wouldn't that actually prevent the quote distracted driving? I don't know, just really contradicting in many ways for people to say keep drones away from cars like as it is now. I don't see how this would help that situation. What does everyone else think about that? To me, it sounds like a double standard in many ways if the whole issue is about things like safety in terms of flying drones near things like vehicles anyways. Ooh, alright, lucky I got some shots in before. I tried to do the little turn circle-y thing. I was a bit rusty, but I guess it's practice. I like to experiment with new shots and everything like that too. Alright, see you guys later.